My husband looked at me across the candlelit table at Pascal's restaurant, our favorite spot for 40 years, and destroyed my entire life with 7 words. I never really loved you, Brenda. The fork slipped from my fingers. Clang! It hit the plate, and that sound, that awful metallic crash, became the soundtrack to my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. Around us, couples laughed and clinked glasses. Someone was celebrating an anniversary. Someone was falling in love. And me? I was learning that my entire marriage had been a lie. 40 years, 14,600 days, 350,400 hours. I'd counted every single one of them in loving this man, nursing him through illnesses, raising his children while he worked late, defending our marriage to friends who whispered that he seemed distant, cold, unavailable. It was practical, Michael continued, his voice flat, emotionless, like he was discussing a business transaction. Stability, family, the kids, but love? He shook his head. That was never there. The restaurant blurred, my vision clouded, but I wouldn't cry. Not yet, not here. 40 years of being the strong black woman, the one who held everything together while the world tried to tear us apart, had trained me too well. There's someone else, he added, almost as an afterthought. Has been for years. I'm retiring soon, and I want to be authentic. I want to live my truth. His truth. What about my truth? What about the miscarriages I endured alone while he worked late? What about the nursing career I sacrificed to raise our children? What about the dreams I deferred, the ambitions I buried? The woman I stopped being so he could have his perfect, stable, convenient life. But here's the thing that Michael didn't know, the thing that would change everything. 3 years ago, when I found the first suspicious credit card statement, when I noticed the new cologne and the secretive phone calls, I didn't just cry and pray and hope it would get better. I did what any smart woman does when she suspects betrayal. I hired a private investigator, and for 3 years, 1,095 days, I'd been filling an envelope in my desk drawer, photos of Michael and his mistress at hotels, financial records showing money he'd hidden, documentation of income he'd never reported, text messages, emails, bank statements. Michael looked at my silence and mistook it for weakness. He actually smiled, this small, pitiful smile, like he felt sorry for me, like I was just another obstacle he was finally removing from his path to authenticity. If he only knew. Before we go further into this story, if you believe in justice and want to see how a woman who gave everything finally takes it all back, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next? Michael never saw it coming. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand what I lost before you can appreciate what I'm about to take back. I was born Brenda Thompson in 1955 in a small Georgia town where everybody knew everybody, and the church was the heartbeat of our community. My mama was a school teacher, one of the first black women in our county to teach at the integrated high school. She walked through those doors with her head high and her shoulders back. Even when parents called her names and students tested her patience, she taught me something crucial. Education is the key that unlocks every door they try to keep closed. My daddy worked at the factory, 32 years on that floor, breathing in chemicals and working doubles so I could go to college. He never said, "I love you" much. That wasn't his way. But every morning, he made Mama's coffee exactly how she liked it. Every evening, he asked about her day and actually listened. That's how I learned what love looked like. Steady, every day. Showing up. I carried those lessons to nursing school, graduated in 1977 with dreams of healing people, of making a difference. I worked at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, holding the hands of the dying, celebrating with new mothers, learning that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is just being present in their pain. That's where I was mentally in 1985 when I met Michael Wilson at a church picnic. I was 30 years old and nursing wounds from a broken engagement. My fiancé, Jerome, had joined the Army and just faded away. Letters came less frequently, then stopped altogether. I got a Dear John letter 6 months later. He'd met someone else on base. It hurt, but I survived. That's what Thompson women do. We survive. Michael was 32, an accountant with a growing firm, and he had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was handsome, not pretty boy handsome, but solid, reliable looking. He wore his church suit well, and when he talked about building a future, about creating something stable in a world that was still trying to knock black folks down, I believed him. "I want a partner," he told me on our third date. "Someone strong. Someone who understands what we're building isn't just for us. It's for our children, for our community. Someone who knows that black love is revolutionary." God, I believed every word. We married 6 months later in a simple ceremony at Ebenezer Baptist Church. My mama cried happy tears. My daddy shook Michael's hand and told him, "You're getting the best woman I know. Don't ever forget that." The church ladies brought potato salad and sweet tea and fried chicken, and we danced to Luther Vandross while everyone celebrated us as proof that black love could thrive, even in Reagan's America. The first few years were good. I worked demanding hospital shifts, 12, sometimes 16 hours on my feet, holding together the broken bodies and spirits that came through our emergency room doors. Michael's accounting career took off. We bought a small house in southwest Atlanta with a porch and a yard and dreams painted on every wall. Jennifer was born in 1987, 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect. I held her in my arms and thought, this is it. This is what I was made for. Michael was proud. I saw it in how he showed her off at church, how he told everyone at his office that he had a daughter. But something shifted after Jennifer arrived. Michael's affection, which had always been reserved, became even more distant. A quick kiss before work, a pat on the shoulder when I'd done something well, no lingering touches, no whispered intimacies, no fire. Not every man is openly expressive, I told myself, echoing my mama's advice. Your daddy wasn't much for romance either, and look how strong their marriage was. So I convinced myself it was enough. Matthew came in 1990, another beautiful baby, another reason to make this marriage work. I reduced my hours to part-time, focusing on home. I cooked the meals my mama taught me, collard greens simmered with love and smoked turkey, cornbread that melted in your mouth, mac and cheese that made the church ladies ask for recipes. I led the women's ministry at church, organized community events, volunteered at the shelter for women fleeing domestic violence. The irony of that last part wouldn't hit me until much later. Michael provided financially. I'll give him that. The mortgage got paid. The kids had clothes and shoes and college funds. But providing money and providing love are two different things. And somewhere in those busy years of diapers and parent-teacher conferences and basketball games, I stopped noticing the difference. Or maybe I noticed and just didn't want to admit it. The fissures started showing in small ways. Michael spent more evenings at work dinners with clients. When he came home, he'd retreat to his study, door closed, telling me he had important projects. Our conversations became functional. Did you pay the electric bill? Jennifer needs new dance shoes. Matthew's basketball game is Saturday. We stopped touching altogether somewhere around 1995. I'd reach for him in bed and he'd shift away, mumbling about being tired. I'd suggest date nights and he'd agree, but spend the whole dinner checking his pager. Later, his BlackBerry. Later still, his iPhone. I poured all my energy into the children, drove Jennifer to dance lessons 5 times a week, sat through every recital, hemmed every costume, stood in the cold at Matthew's basketball games, cheered until my voice was hoarse, made sure he knew his mama was his biggest fan. I volunteered at their schools, joined the PTA, hosted study groups and sleepovers. My friends, the other church ladies, the nurses I worked with, they'd ask sometimes, "Girl, Michael seems so distant. Y'all okay?" And I'd defend him. "He's just stressed with work. Black man carrying the weight of providing. You know how it is. We're solid. We're stable." Stable. That word became my mantra. We had stability, and in a world designed to destabilize black families, wasn't that enough? My mama always said, marriage requires effort. You persist for the bigger picture. So I persisted. By the 2000s, the kids were grown and gone. Jennifer became a teacher like my mama, carrying on that legacy of opening doors. Matthew earned his engineering degree, got a good job with a firm in Charlotte. We were empty nesters, and I thought maybe this was our chance to reconnect, to remember who we were before the kids, before the mortgage, before all the responsibilities. We moved to a serene suburb outside Atlanta. The house was bigger than we needed, filled with photos from milestone moments, graduations, weddings, grandchildren, picture-perfect memories, decorating picture-perfect walls in a picture-perfect house that felt emptier than our old cramped place ever did. I suggested marriage counseling after a particularly cold argument about finances. Michael had made a major investment without consulting me, and when I questioned it, he acted like I was being unreasonable. "We're fine, Brenda," he said, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "We don't need to pay someone to tell us what we already know." What did we know? I wanted to ask. That we were strangers sharing an address, that we hadn't had a real conversation in years, that I couldn't remember the last time he'd looked at me like he actually saw me. But I didn't ask. I trusted him. Or maybe I just didn't want to know the answer. At 50, I developed hypertension. All those years of stress and worry and swallowed feelings finally taking their physical toll. I managed it with diet and faith and walks around the neighborhood. Michael's support was dutiful but never genuine. He'd ask about my doctor's appointments the way you'd ask about someone's car maintenance. Perfunctory, checking a box, not really invested in the answer. And then, 3 years ago, everything changed. I found a credit card statement tucked in his briefcase. He'd left it open on the table while he showered. Hotel charges, restaurant charges, jewelry purchases I'd never received. My hands trembled as I held that paper, and something in me finally broke open. Not broke down, broke open. I called Rita Mitchell, a private investigator I'd met through the domestic violence shelter where I volunteered. Rita was a black woman in her 50s who'd built her business finding proof for women who needed it. She'd given me her card once, said, "Just in case you ever need to know the truth about anything." I never thought I'd call her. "I need to know," I told her that day, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. "I need to know everything." Rita found everything. Photos of Michael with a woman named Vanessa, younger, not black, someone who worked at his firm as a junior accountant. Emails discussing a future together. Text messages I can't even repeat. Financial records showing Michael had opened separate accounts, moving money slowly but steadily. He was planning his exit. He just hadn't told me yet. For 3 years, I watched him live this double life. I documented everything Rita found, every hotel visit, every hidden transaction, every lie. I opened my own bank account. I consulted with a divorce attorney, a brilliant black woman named Sharon Williams, who specialized in protecting women from financial manipulation, and I waited. Because 40 years of being the strong black woman who holds everything together taught me something Michael never understood. Patience is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. I was building a case, brick by brick, document by document, photo by photo. And all the while, I played the devoted wife. I cooked his meals. I smiled at church functions. I hosted Thanksgiving and Christmas like nothing was wrong. Michael thought I was oblivious. He thought I was just another woman too scared or too invested to walk away. That's what made his confession at our 40th anniversary dinner so incredibly stupid. As I sat there, listening to him destroy our marriage with such casual cruelty, I made a decision. Not to cry, not to beg, not to ask him to reconsider or go to counseling or any of the things he expected. I simply went silent. The drive home was wordless. He tried to talk, said something about handling this maturely and being fair, but I didn't respond. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands steady on the wheel, my face a mask he couldn't read. At home, I walked past him, climbed the stairs, and went to the guest room. Let him think I was devastated. Let him think he'd broken me. What he didn't know, what he couldn't see, was that behind my closed door, I wasn't crying. I was planning. The envelope in my desk drawer felt heavier somehow. 3 years of evidence, 3 years of preparation, 3 years of watching and documenting and building my case while he thought I was just another wife too weak to see what was right in front of her face. If he only knew what I'd been preparing, I thought, a smile finally breaking through. If he only knew that patient isn't the same as powerless. Michael had just made the most expensive mistake of his life, and I was about to show him exactly what 40 years of underestimating a black woman costs. The morning after the anniversary dinner, I woke up in the guest room with swollen eyes and a clear mind. The crying had been real. 40 years of love doesn't die without tears, even when you've been preparing for the funeral. But somewhere between 3 a.m. and dawn, grief transformed into something sharper, something dangerous, purpose. I could hear Michael downstairs making coffee, our coffee, using our coffee maker in our kitchen in our house. Except none of it was ours anymore, was it? In his mind, it never had been. I looked at myself in the guest bathroom mirror. 70 years old, but my skin still held that glow. Thank you. Shea butter and black jeans, my mother's cheekbones, my father's determined jaw. I looked like a woman who could survive anything, and I would. I descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. Michael stood at the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I entered, and I watched his face carefully. Guilt? Maybe a flicker. Concern? Barely? Relief? Oh yes, that was written all over him. He thought the hard part was over. He thought confession was the end. Poor stupid Michael. Brenda, he started, his tone that false, gentle voice people use with children and the elderly. We need to talk about next steps. Not yet, I whispered, my voice small and broken. The performance of a lifetime. I can't. I just need time to process. He nodded, and I saw satisfaction in his eyes. This was going exactly how he'd planned. The dutiful wife, shocked but compliant, ready to be managed. Take your time, he said magnanimously, as if he were doing me a favor. I'll sleep in the guest room, give you space. Oh no, baby, I thought. You're staying exactly where I can watch you. But out loud, I just nodded and turned away, shoulders slumped like a woman defeated. Over the next 3 days, I watched Michael transform. He stopped hiding his phone. Text messages would light up the screen. Can't wait to finally be together, and soon, my love. And he wouldn't even bother to hide them from me. He hummed while he dressed for work. He started using cologne again, the expensive kind I'd seen on credit card statements from 2 years ago. He was celebrating his freedom while I was supposedly drowning in grief. Let him celebrate. Every text message, every phone call, every careless moment was being documented. The laptop in my bedroom, the one Michael thought I only used for church newsletters and recipe searches, was quietly running screen recording software that Rita had installed. Every device in the house had become a witness. On day 4, I called my sister Barbara. Barbara Thompson Hughes was 2 years younger than me, a retired social worker who'd spent her career helping families navigate crisis. She lived in Savannah with her husband of 35 years, and she'd always been my grounding force, the one person who could tell me hard truths with soft love. "Bren," she answered on the second ring, "what's wrong? I can hear it in your voice." That's when I told her, not just about the anniversary dinner confession, but everything. The 3 years of surveillance, the private investigator, the evidence folder, the affair with Vanessa, the hidden money. The line went silent for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "Barbara, I'm here." Her voice was tight with controlled fury. "I'm just trying to decide if I should drive to Atlanta and handle Michael myself, or if I should let you do what you've clearly been planning." Despite everything, I smiled. "Let me handle it. Tell me you have a good attorney. The best." And I did. Sharon Williams had been recommended by Rita 3 years ago, and from our very first meeting, I knew I'd found the right person. Sharon was 58, with silver-streaked locks and a reputation for dismantling men who tried to hide assets from their wives. She'd been divorced twice herself, both times walking away with exactly what she was owed. "They always think we're stupid," Sharon had told me during that first consultation. "They confuse patience with ignorance, silence with weakness, and that's when we strike." I met with Sharon 2 days after my call with Barbara. Her office was in downtown Atlanta, glass and steel and power. She sat across from me, the envelope of evidence spread between us like battle plans. 3 years of documentation," Sharon said, flipping through photos of Michael and Vanessa at various hotels, restaurants, parks, financial records showing systematic asset hiding, evidence of unreported income. "Brenda, this is airtight." "Can he keep any of his retirement accounts from me?" I asked, getting to what mattered most. Sharon's smile was predatory. "Let me show you something." She pulled up documents on her computer, Michael's retirement portfolio, his 401k, his pension from the firm. Numbers I'd seen before, numbers Michael had shown me years ago when we talked about our future. "He thinks you only know about the main accounts," Sharon said. "But your PI found the private account, didn't she?" I nodded. "He's been moving money there for 5 years, about $180,000 so far. In Georgia, all marital assets are subject to equitable division. That includes money he tried to hide. That includes the pension he earned while you were home raising his children. That includes everything he thinks belongs only to him." Sharon's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up more documents. "But here's the real victory, Brenda. This private account, he's been funding it with income he never reported to the IRS. He's been classifying it as business expenses, writing it off on taxes, then moving it to this hidden account." My breath caught. "That's tax fraud, yes." Sharon leaned back in her chair, satisfaction radiating from her. "You're not just entitled to half of everything, Brenda. You're entitled to compensation for his fraud, and he's exposed to criminal prosecution if the IRS decides to investigate." This was my first real victory. Not just the money, though God knows I'd earned every penny of it, but the knowledge that Michael's careful planning had actually built the trap he'd walk into. "What do we do next?" I asked. "We wait," Sharon said. "Let him think he's in control. Let him make his moves. The more confident he gets, the sloppier he'll become. And when he finally files for divorce, thinking he's ahead, that's when we show him everything." I left Sharon's office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Powerful. That evening, Michael was late coming home. When he finally arrived at 9 p.m., I was sitting in the living room with a cup of chamomile tea, looking every bit the grieving wife. "Sorry," he said, "not sorry at all. Got caught up at the office." "It's fine," I replied softly. "Michael, I've been thinking, maybe we should talk to someone, a marriage counselor, before we make any final decisions." I watched his face carefully, the flash of annoyance quickly covered, the calculation in his eyes as he decided how to respond. "Brenda, I don't think that's necessary. We're past that point." "But 40 years, I pressed, adding just the right tremor to my voice. "Doesn't that deserve one last attempt?" "Some things can't be fixed," he said, and I heard the eagerness underneath his false sympathy. He wanted this done. He wanted to move on to his authentic life with Vanessa. "I suppose you're right," I conceded, looking down at my tea. "I just thought, well, never mind what I thought." Michael nodded, satisfied that I was accepting reality, and headed upstairs. What he didn't know was that Barbara had just texted me. "I'm coming to Atlanta next week, and I'm bringing reinforcements." The game was just beginning, and Michael had already lost. He just didn't know it yet. Barbara arrived on a Tuesday morning with 2 suitcases, a battle plan, and enough righteous fury to power the city of Atlanta. "Where is he?" she asked, walking through my front door like she owned it. "At work, where he always is." "Good. We have work to do." Barbara had always been the strategic one in our family. Where I led with heart, she led with head. And right now, I needed her analytical mind more than ever. "First things first," she said, settling at my kitchen table. "You need community. You can't do this alone, emotionally or strategically. I know you've been holding this secret for 3 years, but it's time to build your team." That's how I ended up at the Black Women's Divorce Support Group that Thursday evening. The group met in the community center of a church on the west side, a circle of folding chairs and women at various stages of healing. Some looked raw and new to their pain. Others carried themselves with the hard-won grace of survivors. The facilitator, a woman named Sister Paula, welcomed me with knowing eyes. "We've all been where you are," she said, "and we've all made it through to the other side." I told them a version of my story, not the revenge plot, not yet, just the basics. 40 years, the confession, the affair, the devastation. A woman across the circle nodded. Mine waited 35 years to tell me he'd never been attracted to black women, said marrying me was what his parents expected, but he'd always wanted someone lighter. Another woman. 28 years, he left me for his secretary. Cliché, right? But the real kicker was when I found out he'd been forging my signature to take out credit cards in my name. Pain echoed around the circle, but so did something else. Strength. These women hadn't just survived, they'd rebuilt. That's where I met Gloria Richardson. Gloria was 65, a financial advisor who divorced her husband after discovering he'd gambled away their retirement savings. She'd not only recovered financially, but had built a career helping other women protect themselves from financial abuse. After the meeting, Gloria approached me. "You said your husband is an accountant?" "Yes. Then you need to understand something. Accountants are either meticulous or sloppy. There's no in-between. If he's hiding money from you, he's either brilliant at it, or he's made mistakes he doesn't even know about yet." "How do I find out which?" Gloria smiled. "You let someone like me look at your financial records, every single one, and we find every mistake, every hidden account, every piece of leverage you can use." I met with Gloria 3 days later at her office. I brought copies of everything Rita had found, plus financial documents from our marriage, tax returns, bank statements, investment portfolios. Gloria worked in silence for 2 hours, her eyes scanning numbers with the focus of a surgeon. Finally, she sat back. "Brenda, your husband is an idiot." "Excuse me?" "He's good enough to hide money from someone who isn't looking, but he's not good enough to hide it from someone who is. Look here." She pointed to a tax return from 2021. He claimed a home office deduction for 400 square feet. But in 2022, he claimed it for 600 square feet. Your house didn't get bigger, did it? No. So he's inflating deductions. And look at this business expense line, client entertainment. But the amounts don't match up with the credit card statements Rita got from the hotels and restaurants. He's double dipping. Claiming personal expenses as business expenses, taking the tax write-off, then hiding the actual money. This was my second victory, not just proof of the affair, but proof of financial crimes that could destroy Michael's career and his credibility. "There's more," Gloria continued. "He's been underreporting income. See these deposits to the private account? They're marked as consulting fees from various LLCs. But when I cross-reference them with his firm's client list, those LLCs don't exist as clients. He's creating fake entities to move money. Is that illegal? Extremely. We're talking tax evasion, fraud, possibly money laundering depending on how deep this goes." My hands trembled, but not from fear, from the sheer power of what I now held. Meanwhile, my children were starting to notice something was wrong. Jennifer called on Sunday. "Mom, you sound different. What's going on?" "Can you and Matthew come to dinner this weekend?" I asked. "I need to talk to both of you." That Friday, both my babies sat at my dining table. Not babies anymore, but adults with lives and families of their own. Jennifer had brought her husband, Marcus. Matthew had driven up from Charlotte. I looked at their concerned faces and made a decision. They deserved the truth. I told them everything: the confession, the 3-year affair, the hidden money, the evidence, the plan. Matthew's jaw clenched tighter and tighter as I spoke. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, then with fury. "That son of a—" Matthew started. "I got this," I said firmly. "I need you both to know that I'm not a victim in this. I'm a strategist. And when this is done, your father is going to understand exactly what he threw away." Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "What do you need from us? Just love me, believe in me, and when the time comes, be ready to stand with me. Always," they said in unison. I also confided in Sister Ruth from church. Not the whole truth, but enough. Ruth had been witnessing our perfect marriage for decades, had held up Michael and me as examples during marriage ministry events. "I feel so foolish," Ruth said when I told her about the affair. "All those times I praised your marriage to younger couples." "You weren't foolish," I assured her. "I was performing, and I was good at it." Ruth looked at me with newfound respect. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done 3 years ago. Take back everything that's mine." My circle was complete. Barbara for emotional support, Sharon for legal warfare, Gloria for financial strategy, Rita still digging for information, Jennifer and Matthew for family strength, and Sister Ruth as my witness to the world. Michael thought I was isolated and weak, nursing my wounds alone. He had no idea I'd assembled an army. 6 weeks after the anniversary confession, I did something I hadn't done in 30 years. I painted. The canvas sat in the corner of what used to be Michael's study. He'd moved most of his things to the guest room by then, and I'd reclaimed the space. I set up an easel by the window where morning light poured in, and I painted what I felt. Abstract pieces, vibrant and angry and beautiful, reds like fury, blues like sorrow, gold like the dawn breaking after the longest night. Each brush stroke was therapy, each completed canvas a piece of myself returned. Michael walked past one morning, saw me painting, and actually looked surprised. "I didn't know you still did that," he said. "There's a lot you don't know about me," I replied without looking up from my work, and that was true in ways he couldn't imagine. While he thought I was using art as grief therapy, I was using it as cover. The hours I spent in that study with the door closed weren't just about painting. I was on calls with Sharon, reviewing legal strategy. I was meeting virtually with Gloria, transferring my nursing pension to a protected account he couldn't touch. I was documenting every move he made. The laptop camera I'd never covered, it captured him on video calls with Vanessa, discussing when he'd finally be free and how they'd start their life together. The voice-activated recorder hidden in the guest room captured him making plans to lowball me in the divorce settlement. Every careless word, every overconfident move, every assumption that I was too hurt or too old or too stupid to fight back, it was all evidence. But I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was also collecting information. Through Rita's investigation, I learned something fascinating about Vanessa. She was married. Her husband, David Chen, was a software engineer who traveled frequently for work. He had no idea that his wife of 12 years was planning to leave him for her boss. No idea that she'd been having an affair for nearly 5 years. No idea that she'd convinced Michael to hide money in offshore accounts so they could start fresh. Rita gave me David's information with a knowing look. Sometimes the best revenge is introducing people to each other's truths. I reached out to David through a carefully worded LinkedIn message, suggesting we meet for coffee regarding a matter of mutual interest concerning our spouses. He responded within an hour. We met at a Starbucks halfway between our houses. David was younger than Michael, maybe early 40s, with worried eyes and the slight slouch of a man who'd been working too hard. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, sitting across from him. "I know this is unusual." "Your message said it was about Vanessa and your husband?" I slid a folder across the table. Inside were selected photos. Nothing explicit, nothing cruel. Just Michael and Vanessa at restaurants, holding hands, kissing in parking lots. Time stamped over the past year. David's face went pale as he flipped through them. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," I said gently. "I've known for 3 years. I've been gathering information." 3 years? He looked up at me, confused. "Why didn't you say something sooner? Confront them? Blow it all up?" I smiled sadly. "Because I needed to be strategic. And now I'm giving you the same opportunity I gave myself. Don't react in anger. React with preparation." We talked for 2 hours. I learned that David had been suspicious for months, but had convinced himself he was being paranoid. I learned that Vanessa had expensive tastes that didn't match her junior accountant salary. I learned that she'd been pressuring David to add her to his significant investment accounts for estate planning. This was my 3rd victory, an ally who had just as much reason to want justice as I did. "What are you planning to do?" David asked as we prepared to leave. "I'm taking back everything that's mine, every penny, every asset, every piece of dignity. And when I'm done, Michael will understand exactly what 40 years of loyalty was worth." Can I help?" I smiled. "I'll be in touch." Back at home, I started planting seeds. "Michael," I said one evening as he passed through the kitchen, "I've been thinking about our retirement planning. When you retire next year, we should really sit down with a financial planner, make sure we're set up properly." I watched him freeze, just for a moment. Watch the calculation cross his face. "We can talk about that later," he said carefully. "I just want to make sure we're both taken care of," I pressed, all innocence. "After 40 years, we deserve security, don't we?" "Of course," he agreed, but I could see the discomfort in his eyes. Over the next few weeks, I kept it up. Little comments about our future, questions about our accounts, suggestions that we should review our assets together. Each comment made him squirm. Each question made him defensive. And each time, I documented his evasive responses. Meanwhile, Gloria had helped me open my own bank account, one Michael knew nothing about. I transferred my nursing pension, which had been direct deposited into our joint account for decades. I moved the small inheritance from my mother's estate that I'd never touched. I began building my own financial foundation, separate from him. When Michael finally noticed that deposits were missing from our joint account, he actually confronted me. "Brenda, where's your pension money going?" I looked at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Oh, I moved it to a separate account for security. With everything so uncertain, I thought it would be safer." I could see him wanting to argue, wanting to demand I move it back, but he couldn't. Not without revealing that he'd been monitoring our finances more carefully than a man planning to be fair should be. "That's probably smart," he finally said, swallowing his anger. Victory after small victory, I was taking back control. I also started rebuilding my social life, joined a book club with women from church, started having weekly coffee with Barbara via video chat, attended every support group meeting, began posting on Facebook again, photos of my paintings, updates about Jennifer's kids, thoughts about life and resilience. To the outside world, I was a woman healing from heartbreak, finding herself again after devastation. Only my inner circle knew the truth. I was a woman sharpening her weapons. And Michael? He was getting more comfortable, more careless, more certain that he'd gotten away with it all. He started having phone conversations with Vanessa in the living room instead of behind closed doors. He stopped deleting his text messages. He even mentioned to me casually one day that he'd be probably filing paperwork soon. "Whatever you think is best," I said meekly. If he only knew that Sharon had already prepared counter-filings, that Gloria had already traced every hidden asset, that Rita had already compiled a dossier that would destroy him. Michael was counting down to his freedom. I was counting down to his reckoning. It happened on a Tuesday morning in early November, 3 months after the anniversary confession. Michael came downstairs dressed in his best suit, carrying his leather briefcase, looking like a man about to close an important deal. "Brenda," he said, his tone businesslike, "I've made an appointment with my attorney this afternoon. I think it's time we formalize things." "Oh," I said, holding a coffee cup with trembling hands. "Perfect performance." "Already?" "It's been long enough. We both need to move forward." He pulled out a folder, thin, which told me everything. "I've had my lawyer draw up some preliminary terms. Very fair. You'll see I'm being more than generous." He slid the folder across the kitchen table. I opened it with shaking fingers, scanning the document. Preliminary dissolution of marriage agreement. The house would be sold, proceeds split 50-50. His retirement accounts would remain his. Separate property acquired through his employment. I'd keep my nursing pension. We'd divide the joint savings account equally. No spousal support. On paper, it looked equitable. In reality, it was robbery. The document made no mention of the private account with $180,000, no mention of the unreported income, no mention of the offshore accounts Rita had discovered last month, no mention of the investment property he'd purchased under an LLC I wasn't supposed to know about. Michael thought he'd get to keep all of that, thought I was too naive to know it existed. This seems... I paused, let my voice crack. This seems so final. It is final, Brenda. We're done. He said it almost kindly, like he was helping me accept reality. My attorney says if we both agree to these terms, we can be divorced in 60 days. Quick and clean. Quick and clean. No discovery process, no financial disclosure, no opportunity for me to request documentation of assets. He was trying to rush me into signing away my rights to everything he'd hidden. "I need time to look this over," I said, closing the folder. "Maybe I should talk to a lawyer, too." I watched annoyance flash across his face. "You don't need a lawyer, Brenda. This is completely standard. Having lawyers involved will just make things expensive and complicated." "Still," I insisted, "I want someone to explain it to me. Just so I understand." Michael's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Fine, but don't take too long. My attorney says we need to file before year-end for tax purposes." Of course he did. File quickly, before I could discover how much he'd been hiding. After Michael left for work, I called Sharon. "He did exactly what you predicted," I told her. "Lowball offer? No mention of hidden assets?" "Every single one." Sharon's laugh was sharp and victorious. "Perfect. Now we file our own paperwork, full financial discovery, forensic accounting, subpoena everything. Let's see how confident he feels when he realizes you know about every dollar he tried to hide." That afternoon, Sharon filed a response to dissolution petition on my behalf. But this wasn't just a response, it was a declaration of war. We demanded full financial disclosure going back 7 years. We requested forensic accounting of all business accounts, personal accounts, credit cards, loans, and investments. We subpoenaed his employment records, tax returns, and communications with his financial institutions. And here's the beautiful part. In Georgia, once you request full discovery, the other party has to comply. Michael couldn't hide anything anymore. Every account, every transaction, every piece of financial misconduct would be exposed under oath. The papers were served to Michael at his office the next morning. Sharon called me an hour later. "Your husband's attorney just called mine. She said, and I quote, 'What the hell is this? I thought they were doing this amicably.'" "What did you tell her?" I said, "Amicable doesn't mean stupid. Your client tried to hide assets. My client knows about them. Now we're going to document exactly how much he tried to steal." This was my fourth and biggest victory so far. Because that evening, Michael came home furious. "What is this?" He slammed the legal papers on the kitchen counter. "Full financial discovery? Forensic accounting? Brenda, what are you doing?" I looked at him calmly. So calmly. "Protecting myself." "Protecting yourself? From what? I gave you a fair offer." "Did you, Michael?" I stood, walked to the counter, picked up the papers. "Because your fair offer didn't mention the private account with $180,000. Didn't mention the investment property in College Park. Didn't mention the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Should I go on?" The color drained from his face. Shock, fear, then rage. "You've been spying on me?" "No, Michael. I've been protecting my interests, like you've been protecting yours. The only difference is I didn't lie about it." You can't. He couldn't even form complete sentences. "I can, and I am. You wanted a divorce? Fine. We're getting divorced, but we're doing it honestly. Every asset disclosed, every account examined, every lie exposed." "My lawyer says you can't." "Your lawyer is wrong." I pulled out my phone, showed him a text from Sharon. "My attorney says not only can I request full discovery, but given the evidence of hidden assets, the court might sanction you for failing to disclose. You could end up paying my legal fees on top of everything else." Michael grabbed his briefcase, his face twisted with fury and fear. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." He stormed out, and I heard his car peel out of the driveway. The moment he was gone, I called Jennifer and Matthew in a conference call. "It's done," I told them. "He knows I know, and he knows I'm not backing down." "How did he react?" Jennifer asked. "Like a man who just realized he's not as smart as he thought he was." "Good," Matthew said. "Let him sweat." That night, I got a text from David Chen. "Just served Vanessa with divorce papers. Requested full financial disclosure from her, too. Thank you for giving me the courage." I smiled. Michael was about to lose his wife, his hidden money, his credibility, and his mistress's enthusiasm, because nothing kills an affair faster than both parties getting divorced simultaneously. And we were just getting started. The forensic accountant Sharon hired discovered Michael had been skimming money from his firm's client accounts. Not much, just enough that it wouldn't be immediately noticed, but enough to constitute embezzlement. Sharon contacted the IRS about the unreported income. The Georgia State Bar received an anonymous tip about Michael's misconduct from one of his firm's concerned partners. Everything he'd built, his reputation, his career, his comfortable future, it was all crumbling. And I hadn't even gotten to court yet. The mediation was scheduled for December 15, 2025, in a conference room at the Fulton County Courthouse. I dressed carefully that morning, a navy blue suit that my mother would have approved of, professional and dignified. I applied my makeup with steady hands, smoothed shea butter on my skin until it glowed. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw not a victim, but a woman who had spent 3 years preparing for this exact moment. Barbara had driven up from Savannah the night before. She sat in my living room that morning, watching me gather my materials with fierce pride in her eyes. "You ready?" she asked. "I've been ready for 3 years." Sharon picked us both up at 8:30 a.m. In her car, she reviewed the strategy one final time. "He's going to try to appear reasonable," Sharon explained. "His attorney will present their settlement offer as fair and equitable. They'll probably express concern about the costs of litigation, try to pressure you into accepting something less than you deserve. And then?" Sharon's smile was sharp. "Then we show them exactly what we know." We arrived at the courthouse at 9:15 a.m. The mediation was scheduled for 9:30. As we walked through the marble halls, my heels clicking against the floor, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward. We entered the conference room, and there he was, Michael sitting at the table with his attorney, a middle-aged white man named Robert Caldwell, who looked like every corporate lawyer in Atlanta. Michael wore his best suit, the one he saved for important meetings. He'd gotten a fresh haircut. He looked confident, composed, and then he saw me walk in with Sharon and Barbara, carrying a folder thick with 3 years of evidence. His confidence flickered. "Miss Williams." Robert Caldwell stood, extending his hand to Sharon. "Thank you for coming. I believe we can resolve this matter efficiently today." "I'm sure we can," Sharon replied smoothly. Shaking his hand, we sat. The mediator, a tired-looking woman named Judge Patricia Morrison, explained the process. Each side would present their position, and she would help us reach an equitable agreement. "Mr. Caldwell, would you like to begin?" Judge Morrison asked. Robert pulled out documents, slid them across the table. "We believe the preliminary terms we sent to Ms. Thompson are more than fair. A 50-50 split of marital assets, each party retaining their separate retirement accounts. No spousal support given the length of the marriage, and Ms. Thompson's own pension." "Before we discuss your proposal," Sharon interrupted, "I think it's important that everyone in this room understands the full scope of marital assets." She opened her own folder, pulled out documents one by one, placing them on the table like cards in a poker game. "Let's start with the private account at Wells Fargo, the one containing $180,000 that Mr. Wilson failed to disclose in his preliminary filings." Michael's face went pale. Sharon continued. "Then there's the investment property in College Park, purchased through Wilson Holdings LLC, also undisclosed." Robert Caldwell looked at Michael sharply. Michael wouldn't meet his eyes. "The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands totaling approximately $95,000. The unreported income from 2020 through 2024 totaling $127,000. This is ridiculous." Michael finally spoke, his voice tight. "Where did you even get—" "Oh, Michael," I said, speaking for the first time. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "Did you really think I didn't know?" He stared at me. I pulled out my own folder, the one I'd been filling for 3 years. Photos of him and Vanessa, time-stamped and dated, bank statements, credit card receipts, text message transcripts, emails discussing their future together. "I've known about your affair for 3 years," I said, watching his face transform. "Known about Vanessa, known about the money you've been hiding, known about every lie, every deception, every careful plan you made for your authentic life." Shock froze his features. Then fear crept in. Fear of what else I might know, what else I might reveal. "You've been spying on me?" Rage colored his voice now, defensive and cornered. "No, Michael. I've been protecting myself. While you were busy planning your exit, I was busy documenting your crimes." Sharon took over. "Mr. Wilson has been committing tax fraud, hiding marital assets, and embezzling from his firm. We have documentation of everything. The IRS has already been notified. The State Bar will be notified regarding the ethical violations. And his employer— You can't—" Michael started to stand. "Sit down," Judge Morrison said sharply. "Ms. Williams, please continue." "Given the evidence of fraud and misconduct, we're requesting a 70-30 division of all marital assets in Ms. Thompson's favor. This includes all retirement accounts, the hidden accounts, the property, and compensation for the emotional distress caused by Mr. Wilson's 3-year affair." Robert Caldwell looked at his client with barely concealed fury. "Michael, why didn't you tell me about any of this?" Michael couldn't answer. He just sat there, watching his carefully constructed world collapse around him. I leaned forward, looked him directly in the eyes, and delivered the line I'd been rehearsing for 3 years. "You thought 40 years of service earned you nothing, Michael. You thought you could just walk away with everything while I got your scraps?" I placed my hands flat on the table. "Let me show you what I've been earning." I pushed the folder toward him. Evidence of everything. Every lie, every theft, every moment he'd underestimated me. Michael picked up the folder with shaking hands, flipped through it, and I watched defeat settle into his bones. "Jesus Christ, Michael," Robert muttered. "We need to talk, privately." They left the room. Through the glass door, I could see Robert gesturing angrily, while Michael stood there, diminished and beaten. 20 minutes later, they returned. "My client accepts the 70-30 division," Robert said, his voice clipped and professional. "And he agrees to full financial disclosure going forward." Judge Morrison looked at me. "Ms. Thompson, is this acceptable to you?" I looked at Michael one last time, saw the man who'd told me he never loved me, who'd hidden money for years, who'd planned to leave me with nothing. "Yes," I said, "this is acceptable." The final divorce decree was signed on January 30th, 2026. 40 years and 3 months after we'd said, "I do," we were officially done. But the consequences for Michael were just beginning. The settlement gave me 70% of all marital assets. The house we'd lived in for 20 years, mine to sell or keep. His retirement accounts, the ones he thought were his alone, I got 70% of those too, including the private account he'd spent 5 years funding, the investment property, the offshore accounts. Every hidden dollar came into the light, and most of it came to me. The final tally. Michael walked away with approximately $240,000. I walked away with $780,000, plus my own nursing pension, plus the house. 40 years of marriage had earned me financial security, finally. But money wasn't Michael's only problem. The IRS received an anonymous report, though I'm sure Sharon would never confirm she sent it, detailing Michael's unreported income from 2020 through 2024. The audit began in February. By March, Michael owed $47,000 in back taxes, plus penalties and interest. His accountant's salary couldn't cover it. He had to liquidate his remaining retirement savings to pay. Then his firm found out about Vanessa. It turns out that having an affair with a subordinate employee, especially when you're in a position to influence their promotions and salary increases, is a massive ethics violation. The firm's HR department conducted an investigation. They discovered Michael had given Vanessa 3 promotions in 5 years, despite lukewarm performance reviews from other partners. He'd approved bonuses for her that exceeded standard rates. He'd assigned her to his most lucrative client accounts. It was textbook favoritism based on a personal relationship. The firm gave him a choice: resign quietly or be fired publicly. He resigned. But word spread anyway. In the tight-knit Atlanta accounting community, everyone knew within a week. Michael Wilson, the respectable accountant with 40 years of marriage and a spotless reputation, had been sleeping with his employee and cooking his own books. No other firm would hire him. At 67, nearing retirement, with a ruined reputation and depleted savings, Michael's career was over. And Vanessa? David Chen had filed for divorce the same week as my mediation, naming Michael as correspondent. In Georgia, that meant David could sue Michael for alienation of affection. The settlement cost Michael another $30,000. Vanessa herself faced consequences at the firm, demoted, transferred to a different department, her own reputation damaged. She broke up with Michael 3 weeks after our divorce finalized. Turned out she'd been attracted to his stability and success, not his authentic self. When both disappeared, so did she. Michael's authentic life had cost him everything: his wife, his money, his career, his mistress, and his dignity. Meanwhile, my children stood firmly beside me. Jennifer and Matthew had watched their father's lies unravel with equal parts sadness and fury. They'd seen how he'd treated me, how he'd planned to cheat me, and they'd made their choice. "He's still our father," Jennifer told me one afternoon over coffee. "But you're our mother, and what he did to you is unforgivable." My grandchildren, Jennifer's 2 kids and Matthew's baby girl, still visited me every week. They'd run through my new place laughing and playing, calling me Mimi, filling my life with the love Michael never gave me. Michael sent texts sometimes, asking to see the grandkids. Jennifer and Matthew let him, occasionally. But the visits were strained, brief. The damage he'd done couldn't be undone. He'd chosen his authentic life. Now he was living it, alone, broke, and forgotten. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I stood in my new condo overlooking Piedmont Park, watching the sun rise over Atlanta, and I felt something I hadn't felt in decades: peace. The condo was smaller than the house I'd shared with Michael, but it was mine. Every inch of it reflected who I was, not who I'd had to be for someone else. The walls were painted in warm earth tones, burnt sienna and golden ochre, colors that reminded me of Georgia clay and summer sunsets. My paintings hung everywhere, abstract pieces that captured 40 years of suppressed emotion, finally set free. I'd turned the second bedroom into a studio, an easel by the window, canvases stacked against the walls, paints organized by color, reds and blues and golds and purples. Every morning I woke up and created something new. Some pieces were angry, violent swirls of crimson and black. Others were joyful explosions of yellow and orange. Each one was honest. Each one was mine. The support group sisters came for dinner every Thursday. We'd gather around my dining table. Gloria, Sister Paula, 3 other women who'd walked the path from betrayal to empowerment. And we'd eat and laugh and sometimes cry and always lift each other up. "You're glowing," Gloria told me one evening, studying my face in the candlelight. "Shea butter," I said with a smile, "and freedom." Jennifer had taken it upon herself to teach me about online dating. She'd pull up her phone during our weekly coffee dates, swiping through profiles of eligible men in their 60s and 70s. "Mom, look at this one. Retired teacher, loves jazz, has his own teeth." Having his own teeth is really the bar now? I'd laugh. You'd be surprised. I wasn't ready to date. Maybe I would be someday. But right now, I was enjoying learning who Brenda Thompson was when she wasn't performing for anyone. I was 70 years old and just discovering myself. I still volunteered at the shelter every Tuesday morning. But now, when women came in, devastated by betrayal, when they told stories of husbands who'd lied and cheated and stolen, I could look them in the eye and say, "I've been there, and I'm here to tell you that you survive it. More than survive, you can thrive." My grandchildren visited every Sunday. We'd bake cookies and read stories and do arts and crafts. They'd paint alongside me in my studio, their little hands creating masterpieces they'd proudly present. "Mimi, look. I made a rainbow. It's beautiful, baby. Let's hang it right here." My skin still glowed, 70 years old, and people still commented on it. My smile was genuine for the first time in years. My shoulders carried no weight but my own. I'd spent 40 years watering a garden that bore no fruit. Now every seed I planted was for myself, and the harvest was sweet. If you're watching this video, maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe you've given years, decades, to someone who didn't value your sacrifice. Maybe you felt invisible in your own life, like your needs and dreams and heart didn't matter. I want you to hear this. They matter. You matter. For 40 years, I believed love was enough. I believed patience would be rewarded, that loyalty meant something, that if I just held on long enough, things would get better. I was wrong. Love isn't just given. It's earned and sustained. And when someone stops earning it, stops sustaining it, you have every right to take it back. But here's what I learned. Revenge isn't just about hurting the person who hurt you. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about looking in the mirror and seeing someone powerful instead of someone powerless. It's about turning pain into purpose. For 40 years, I watered a garden that bore no fruit. I gave everything to a man who gave me nothing. But you know what? Those years taught me patience. They taught me strategy. They taught me that a Black woman who's been underestimated her entire life knows exactly how to use that underestimation as a weapon. So if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been told you're not enough, if you've ever given your all to someone who gave you nothing, drop your city in the comments below. Let's build a community of people who refuse to be diminished, who refuse to settle, who refuse to accept less than they deserve. Hit that subscribe button if this story resonated with you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And Michael, wherever you are right now, I hope you've learned something valuable. Underestimating a Black woman who's been patient for 40 years, that's not just a mistake. That's the most expensive lesson you'll ever learn.